everything requires at least one of those. So if you have these as building blocks that are interoperable, that any service provider can access, you're eliminating the need for them to rebuild these very complex systems that they may not be an expert in. Second is, as Marie mentioned, under the services first approach, this is really the idea of moving from projects to products. And we come from the World Bank, we work on development projects. They often have a 5-year time horizon. And these instruments were set up to finance things like bridges or roads that you build once, it lasts for 50 years, the specifications don't really change except for some maintenance. But digital government isn't like that. These are products that we need to continue to deliver and to improve and to iterate over time. It's not just a one-shot effort, especially for DPI like digital ID, because every single service or many services of government and private sector will continue to rely on ID systems. So digital ID needs to be continuously operated and continuously improved. And we've had some good discussions earlier in this conference around that sustainability issue in particular, which I think is a big one to solve. Third, we want to move from services that are centered around institutions to services that are, did my mic? Yep. To services, keeps cutting out, services that are centered around people. So, I don't know if this is, can you hear me? It keeps cutting, okay. Maybe it's just my mic that's cutting in and out. Okay. So when we think about right now, if I have a baby and I am trying to, do all the things that I need to do after I have a baby, I have to go to one website to do birth registration. I have to go to another website to apply for healthcare. I have to go to another website to update my family record. I have to go to another website to apply for XYZ benefit. What we want to move to in the future is, well, if you know I'd had a baby, maybe there's a package of 5 or 6 government services that everyone who has had a baby in their family probably needs to access, and those could be bundled together, so I only have to go one place. Whereas when we're thinking with the orientation of a ministry or a department or an agency, we're listing all our services. We aren't necessarily thinking about the user at a stage in their life that needs to interact with them and when and why and how we might bundle other services together. So again, in addition to human-centered design, really thinking about how the services are packaged and delivered and accessed in a way that makes sense to people and to businesses who are using them. Fourth, moving from just digitalization to transformation. So this is what Marie mentioned when she said, a lot of times we focus on, well, let's make this digital. And maybe you digitalize the front end, but then not the back end. Or even if you digitalize the back end, a process that took 10 steps with 10 different people involved still takes 10 steps on the back end with 10 different databases or resources involved that, again, cost time and power and sort of perpetuate those inefficiencies. So digitalization is really an opportunity to rethink how the service is delivered around the user, around different service providers, and to re-engineer those processes. Sometimes easier than not if you have to change laws and regulations. For example, one agency requires that something be stored in paper form, so you're not able to skip that step. This is the time when we need to think about what are the quick wins that we can have to reform the services, and where do we actually need to bring in institutional reform so that we can digitalize end to end. And then finally, moving from a government mentality to an ecosystem mentality. And this is something Joseph and Stella also talked about in the opening sessions on Tuesday, I believe, is that we're used to thinking about the old generations of e-government or digital government where the government is doing everything. But now we're moving into a world where we need to strengthen local digital industry and service providers and talent who can maintain and operate systems. So really engaging with vendors, engaging with private sector, partnering with private sector to deliver things like DPI in a way that isn't creating lock-in is super important and a big opportunity. Because if you think about the last public sector service you received, and you think about the last private sector service you received, oftentimes the private sector service delivery is better. So we can learn something sometimes from the private sector, and we can leverage the innovation in government to make sure that we're staying ahead of the curve when everything is changing every 6 months, now especially in the age of AI. So having this sort of closer collaboration is really going to, I think, define the next generation of digital government, where you don't have to do everything alone, but you can have strategic partnerships that are still, accountable and well governed with strong governance and regulation from the public sector. Okay, so that's about it from us. A couple of tools and resources that Marie also touched on in terms of how do you actually implement those 5 steps, those 5 mindset shifts or strategic shifts in practice. We have a couple of examples. So one that we worked with, I think 5 or 6 countries, maybe 3 or 4 countries now, is doing what we call a time and motion study, which essentially takes a business process like opening a bank account or registering a birth or applying for a social grant, and puts a time and a cost on every step in that process, both for the service provider, the ministry or the bank, etc., and the user. How long do I have to spend? What is this costing me in terms of my time? And then you go there, you do this by actually sitting down and watching with a stopwatch how long the process actually takes in real life. Then you can estimate, well, if this process was digitalized, what are the biggest pain points? Where can digitalization actually relieve some of this burden? And then how much time and money would you save from this? So this is one way. There are lots of methodologies for business process reengineering, many of which are available online. Qualitative studies we've also found to be very valuable. So going out in the field, talking to people, talking to civil society, talking to local industry associations about what are the pains that they're feeling regarding identification, what are their needs, what are their preferences, so that we're building those systems around that. We do also use case reports. This is, again, trying to identify, well, what are the use cases across government and private sector that would benefit most from ID, digital ID, or another DPI or another service, so that we can focus on those that are of highest value for people, that will be the biggest wins and be the most transformative to digitalize. And then we also are working with countries on service design labs to really rethink and apply a human-centered design, select and prioritize these services, do prototyping and other types of design to actually improve the quality of the services themselves. And then this is the link that I promised. So there are copies in English. Apologies to my Francophone friends, my Lusophone friends. We have just English. We have some copies in the back. And then you can scan here to download the PDF, which has a summary of the presentation and links to World Bank publications. We're also happy to share this slide deck via Joseph and his team after the session. I'll leave this up for a second. And so we're going to, oh, thank you. What? Yes. So our next session, and I'm pleased we're running only 5 minutes behind, despite starting 5 minutes late. I think we're doing okay. So we're going to move on now to session 3, which is about country spotlights. So the goal here is really to showcase practical approaches to DPI and linking this to real service delivery outcomes. So we're going to hear from 6 minutes from 3 distinguished guests. So if you can allow me to welcome to the stage, we have Teresa Esson Benjamin, who is the head of legal and compliance for the National Identity Authority of Ghana. We have Josephine Mukesha, Director General of the National Identification Agency of Rwanda. Yes. At CNAM, the Caisse Nationale d'Assurance Maladie, and Côte d'Ivoire. So welcome to the stage. Thank you so much. And you,
Thank you very much. So, in terms of digital public infrastructure and services, Ghana has come a long way. Ghana started off with an aim of a national identity objective. So our initial aim was to issue national ID cards to the Ghanaian citizen. But with time, we have evolved from that. We realized very quickly in the journey that identity in itself does not create any impact, and that there was a need for us to add a layer which would give adequate and efficient service delivery. So if you take a look at our journey, we embarked on a mass registration exercise. And then in the course of that, we registered about 19.2 million Ghanaians aged 15 years and above. Now we are in the field registering Ghanaians from age 6 to age 14. There are about 11 million Ghanaians in that category. And we are registering them to issue them with national ID cards as well. But we moved from an enrollment system where we registered Ghanaians, and then we are now looking at the utility of the card. So we've moved into the verification services, authentication, and then finally service delivery. So the emphasis in Ghana now is not really on the physical card, because for Ghana, even beyond registration, you can walk into any service center without your national ID card. And if they go and proceed with a what do you call it, biometric verification, they can render you a service without you having your physical card present with you. So we have completely moved away from the idea of simply issuing cards to the idea of identity verification. And we're doing this because we are considering a lot of user agencies. And when I say user agencies, I'm referring to all the institutions that require access to the National Identity Register, rather than them having independent silos where they now go in and use the information for their operational activities. We are pushing towards a one-stop shop. So if you come to the national ID and you do a verification and you now confirm the identity of the individual, then we can transfer it to you in real time, the personal information of that individual, and then you can add on your operational information, and then you can render a service to them. So statistically, we have issued 18.5 million out of 19.5 million cards to Ghanaians. And we have, beyond that, we have given people over 19.5 unique identities. So every person who is 15 years and above now has a unique national ID number, which they're going to carry for the rest of their lives. And beyond that, in terms of verification, we have also verified over 100 million people in terms of contact. So you may have 19.5 million, but we have done series of verifications with them. And they're done that through the banks and all the institutions that they attend. And we have onboarded onto our national identity verification system platform 355 plus institutions. And this is a mixture of public sector and private sector. Now, to do this, we had to really create trust through law and policy. And the good thing about the National Identification Authority is that when it was established in 2006, it saw into the future. So the law that was created, or the law at the time, looked beyond just issuing a national ID card to a Ghanaian. It looked at the utility of the card. So if you go into the Act, the National Identity Register Act, which governs our operational activities, it establishes the national identity service. Makes us the custodian of the national data, which is the National Identification Authority. And then beyond that, it also enables institutions to come on board. So we are not only custodians, but we are supposed to give access to institutions and individuals, actually, who come on board the National Identity Register. Then beyond that, in 2012, we also issued a regulation in support of our National Act. And this regulation made some services in the country mandatory. We have about 17 services that are mandatory, and I listed some of them. If you're opening a bank account, you must by all means have a national ID card. If you want to buy a SIM card, if you want to pay your taxes, if you want to apply for passport, pensions, and national health, driver's license. And then the liberty that the law gives the authority is that if we feel that there are any other services that need to be prescribed for verification, we are allowed to add on to that. So now if you come to Ghana, you'd see that we have passed a new law which says that all financial transactions require you to be verified against the National Identity Register. And the key enablers for this is naturally our law, but in addition to that, you have the Data Protection Act, which was in 2018, but a very strong act that supports the work we do, because a lot of data subjects want to know who has access to their data, where is the data stored, how is it retained, and all of that. And then if you also go into our standardization and operability, we are in the process of becoming ISO compliant, because we look at international best practice and we feel that you need to be able to do that for the clients to have some confidence in the work that you do. But another part I need to add is that we have also worked on consents and guidelines. So for instance, every now and then you get a ministerial guideline which tells you that maybe all these institutions should stop procuring ABIS and then proceed to use the national ID infrastructure as the single source of truth for verification. And then also as an authority, we issue directives on how you should retain data and hold on to data and all of that. And we do all of this to make sure that the citizen is comfortable with the activities, so that when they go to a service center and they are asked to put their hands on a device for verification, it becomes simple and easy for them to do. Now, the most important part of the work we do now is really and truly the verification system platform, and that is the onboarding process. Now, you'll be interested in knowing how efficient our onboarding process is. So if you're an institution and you're coming on board, we need to onboard you. And to do that, we need to ensure that you are data protection compliant. We need to ensure that you have the mandate to even collect the data you are requesting for, so that we don't just give any data. So I'll give you an example. There are institutions that do not need to know perhaps the name of your spouse, or they don't need to know how many wives you have. If it is not part of their mandate, then we are not going to transfer that sort of information to them. So if you take a look, you must make a request. Initially, you were to write to us and then tell us that you want to be onboarded. We made a simpler way of you going online and then putting in an application by registration. And immediately you put in the application, it gives you a list of the things that you are required to have. So a copy of your Act of Parliament, and then a copy of your data protection certification, and any other information that you think you would need. But the most important part is we also want to know what your operational process is. So we want to know what you're going to use the national ID card for. And I'll give you an example. If you take, for instance, land title registration in Ghana, there are so many factors that you have to go through. You have the search, like you want to do a search in the land registry. You also want to stamp your document, and then you want to have a land certificate at the end of the day. So if you tell us what your operational needs are, we are able to guide you to tell you that, well, you would need to do a verification at the beginning when the request is put in, and then you may need to do a verification at the end of the service when you're coming for your title documents. So that's the sort of guide that we give you. And then we do your due diligence. We check all the documents you've given us to see whether it is accurate, authentic, and then we proceed to go into legal conversation. Now, legal conversation means that we will share with you a draft contract. So for every user agency that is onboarded, he's contracted. The institution is contracted. So you don't just go into a casual conversation with the agency, but they go into contract and it is drafted, and then we sort of go back and forth, and then we agree on some of the terms of the contract. And then whilst doing that, we run the technical integration as well. So for the technical integration, you have API credentials that we share with you, and we don't do it in a sandbox environment. It's real time, because you need to be able to know whether you can verify identities when people come to your institution. So we run the legal process and the technical process side by side. And then finally, we allow you to test over a 2-week period if you want. If you want an extension, we can arrange that. And then you test the systems, and then once you're conversant with the process, we proceed to go live. And when we go live, it means that you can have access to the data in accordance with the agreements that we have signed with you. But it's important to let you know that we have evolved really and truly beyond simply implementing and using a physical card. And so these are the steps. And on average, these steps take about 3 weeks. It started off initially with about 6 months to onboard, but we've done so well. We've come all the way to about 3 weeks. And if you look at the bottom of my slide, I'm giving you an idea of the financial sector, the telecoms sector, the public sector, the pensions and all of that, all the areas that we have onboarded institutions. And I indicated that we have about 355 institutions that we have onboarded to date. And currently we are doing what we call stakeholder engagements. We are calling pockets of institutions. So every now and then you'd hear us, we are calling maybe the mining industry. Then all the institutions in the mining industry come together and then we engage them. And we have come to find that when you do that, you get a lot of traction, because sometimes they have an idea that the service exists, but we have to go to them rather than say that we are an institution or an authority and we are waiting for them to come to us. We do the reverse in Ghana. And then you have to also consider the impact of what we're doing. What is the impact of all the things that we're doing to date? It's important to know that with all the statistics we have here, some of the journeys for a typical account opening in the past in Ghana, you'd have to draw your the direction to your house, and then the bank will come and check it. All that is gone, because with just one verification, you can now proceed to open your account, even remotely, because we have remote facial verification. So you can sit in the comfort of your home and then open a bank account. So the impact has moved people from frustrating and exclusionary services to a very simple, secure service. And if you really look at the lessons learned, I would say that you must address a few things. And one of the main ones is you must prioritize your high impact clients. So there are institutions in your country that use more data than others. So prioritize them and make sure that you have them on board in terms of their business strategy and all of that. And then the second thing is you must have a lot of stakeholder engagement and buy-in. If you don't engage the institutions that are mandated to, they won't come to you. Even though the law says that they must come to you, they will not. And then your technical support and readiness. You must have a team that is willing to support them. When they set up the API credentials, when they are testing and it's not going through, we have a 24-hour technical system that manages all these requests that come through. So at any given time, you get the response. And then the legal and compliance assurance. Don't make them feel that the contracts are fixed. You must have a conversation, understand the way they work, the type of industry they're in, and be able to mix up the contracting processes to make it easier for them. And finally, when you go live with them, still monitor their progress, check their trends, and see whether there's an abuse or maybe underutilization of the service, and then you put in the necessary steps to assist them. So what I would say at the end of the day is that the mandate we have has created the demand, but the enablement has created the adoption. Thank you very much.
Yes, so Josephine is next, I believe. If we can have the presentation for Rwanda.
Yes, sure. Yes, thank you so much. So we're going to talk about the DPI Center in Rwanda. So for context, what I would like to appreciate my colleague from Ghana, actually what they're doing is what we've been doing. now we've brought in now the DPI Center to include more institutions into this journey. So our digital transformation journey has all these vehicles. So we have the digital identity systems as at the core, and then we have interoperable payments initiatives that have been developed. We have the agricultural digital platforms that have come up because, as you know, in Rwanda, we have the majority of citizens that are into farming. We have social protection systems, and then we also have the financial inclusion infrastructure. So when we look at why did we have this Rwanda DPI Center, so this DPI Center was established under the RISA. RISA is our Rwanda Information Society Authority that supports the implementation and coordination of our DPI. So what they do on a daily basis is the coordinating the DPI implementation. They support the development and foundation of digital systems. They facilitate the collaboration because this is a really multi-institutional endeavor. And so the DPI Center helps to coordinate and ensure that everybody is really looked after. And then they also to reduce the friction and the fears that when come with the encouragement to be integrated. They also support in building the ecosystem, the technical capacities. So they collaborate both from public and private sector. And so the DPI enables the innovation across the entire digital ecosystem. So from the government has to provide the trusted digital infrastructure, the governance frameworks, and the shared digital platforms. So like all the testing environment, all the citizen journey, the testing that would cause the private sector to embark into, now the government has taken it so that to ensure that it reduces the risks, and also people, like we have like at our central bank, a different institution, we have now open sandboxes where innovators can come and build their solutions before they can scale. And the good thing is when you are working with a regulator, actually you move the journey together so that if there are some policies or some regulations that need to be amended, since you walk the journey together, it is easy to amend and adjust to them. So from the private sector, we ensure that they are the ones to build and sustain the applications, because we believe that the government just needs to provide the building blocks, but the vertical solutions have to come from the private sector, the financial services and solutions. So we have now multiple solutions that are being built across multiple hubs that are in Kigali, and also to encourage innovation. So when you look at our Rwanda stack, it represents the long-term architecture for interoperable digital systems at the lower layer, because every day the system and the services have to evolve the person. So the first layer is the digital identity. I think the presentation yesterday we mentioned about our journey. The payment infrastructure is the second one. We have the data exchange platforms, the consent management, and the digital registries. And in these registries, we have, for example, the land, we have the tax, we have the social registry. We have a lot of registries that are supported. Yeah? This is a platform that is being built because we found that in the agriculture, for example, the farmers were not able to access the loans, the microloans from the banks, because they did not have enough credit score to apply. So what we are doing is with this CMI, which is the credit market infrastructure, is it is being linked to the identity first and to the multiple financial vehicles that we have. So, for example, the mobile network operators, we have the regulators, the utilities, because they buy electricity, they buy water, they pay a lot of payment. So all these micro activities that they do, like the airtime lending, the SMS, like the multiple things that they do on a daily basis, even the social grants they receive and how they use it, because they have mobile wallet. So all this is actually used by the CMI to be able to score them, and then they are able to actually access loans like everybody else in the normal banking sector. So these are achievements that are possible to exist today because we have such an integration, but also to ensure that even those that are not in the traditionally formal environment, but still transact because their data is somewhere in the cloud, because we all have, across all the continent, we have everywhere, we have all the solutions that exist and they collect the data, but it is not used for the people that provide this data. So through this shared infrastructure, we believe that it will not only bring a solution, but also contribute to a better life for the citizens and everyone, and then also reduce the issue of exclusion. So I think with that, I would like to thank you so much. This is the journey of our DPI in Rwanda.
Thank you so much. Very, very impressive, as always. The DPI Center is excellent. So next and finally, we have Karija Konebamba, the Director of Affiliation from CNAM in Côte d'Ivoire. So yes. Okay, great.
Je veux remercier ID for Africa pour cette opportunité qu'ils nous est donnée et remercier également les facilitatrices parce qu'elles nous ont fait des recommandations au démarrage de ces présentations et vous allez voir que pour certaines, on a vraiment besoin de prendre en compte ces recommandations-là. Donc, pour le cas de la Côte d'Ivoire, c'est un modèle qui a été construit autour de la couverture maladie universelle. Donc, c'est une utilisation qui avait été déjà identifiée. Diapo. C'est moi qui... J'espère que le chrono est bloqué, hein, parce que... Ok, c'est bon. Merci. Donc, concernant la couverture maladie universelle en Côte d'Ivoire, nous allons d'abord présenter le contexte. Il faut dire que c'est la CMU, elle a été instituée par la loi de 2014 et c'est un système obligatoire de couverture contre le risque maladie. Donc, comme j'ai dit, cette identification est dirigée directement vers l'utilisation des soins de santé. La CMU est basée sur le principe de la solidarité. Donc, en Côte d'Ivoire, tous ceux qui vivent, quel que soit leur statut, doivent bénéficier et le montant de la cotisation, c'est 1 000 francs pour tout le monde. L'objectif, donc, c'est de garantir l'accès à des soins de santé de qualité à l'ensemble de la population résidant en Côte d'Ivoire. Donc, c'est à la fois pour les nationaux et les non-nationaux et dans des conditions financières soutenables. Donc, éviter vraiment que la question financière soit un frein à l'utilisation des soins de santé. La CMU comprend 2 régimes. Donc, on a le régime contributif qui est appelé le régime général de base. Donc, pour ce régime-là, on a des cotisations qui sont payées et ce régime concerne la plupart des personnes qui vivent sur le territoire ivoirien. Et le deuxième régime, c'est le régime non contributif ou régime d'assistance médicale qui, lui, concerne les personnes qui n'ont pas la capacité de payer les cotisations de 1 000 francs CFA, donc pour lesquelles l'État va payer la cotisation. Les différentes étapes pour bénéficier de la CMU, donc il faut être enrôlé. Donc on a une identification qui est biométrique et donc qui a été lancée depuis 2015. Ensuite, après être identifié, il faut cotiser, il faut payer des cotisations. On est dans l'assurance et il faut payer des cotisations. Et puis, la troisième étape, c'est de bénéficier des prestations, qui est en fait la finalité de la couverture maladie universelle. Pourquoi il y a une identification spécifique pour la CMU? Parce que dans les autres exposés, on a vu que ce n'était pas pareil. Pourquoi il y a une identification spécifique? Déjà, dans le domaine de l'assurance en Côte d'Ivoire, pour le privé qui existait, on avait un niveau de fraude qui a été constaté. Donc, dans l'utilisation des services de ces assurances-là, on avait pratiquement 10% des prestations qui étaient payées qui étaient liées à des cas de fraude. Et donc, en 2014 également, en Côte d'Ivoire, on n'avait pas une identification qui concernait toute la population. À l'époque, l'identification qui était faite donc, par l'Office national d'identification se limitait qu'aux personnes de plus de 18 ans, donc des personnes qui avaient droit à la carte nationale d'identité. Et en plus, les personnes d'autres nationalités n'étaient pas concernées. Donc, on avait toute cette population, alors que la cible de la CMU, c'est tous ceux qui vivent sur le territoire ivoirien, quel que soit leur âge. C'est pour ça que la CNAM, la Caisse nationale d'assurance maladie, qui est l'organe qui gère la CMU, a été autorisée à faire de l'identification spécifique pour l'utilisation des prestations de soins. Donc, en plus, quand on va à l'hôpital, il faut qu'on contrôle l'identité. Donc, s'assurer que la personne qui est en face, qui est venue à l'hôpital avec la carte, que la carte appartient à la personne. Voilà. Donc, l'enrôlement, c'est gratuit. Donc, au démarrage, l'État a payé l'enrôlement jusqu'à aujourd'hui. C'est gratuit pour les populations. Après l'enrôlement, on a des contrôles qui sont faits et il y a un identifiant unique qui est attribué, un identifiant de 13 caractères qui est attribué à chaque personne enrôlée. Et l'identification va se matérialiser par la production d'une carte. Et de 2015 à juin 2023, on a eu un seul site sur lequel on produisait les cartes et on a vu que vraiment le problème de l'attente des cartes, c'était compliqué, les populations se plaignaient. Vous avez dans votre présentation au départ, il faut écouter les populations. Et donc finalement, on a travaillé à mettre en place un mécanisme qui permet aujourd'hui de s'enrôler et d'avoir tout de suite la carte. Malheureusement, on n'a pas le temps, on a des sites qui ne sont pas très loin d'ici. Donc, on a aujourd'hui la production sur place des cartes dans le cadre de la couverture maladie universelle. Donc là, on a quelques images. Donc, on a une image d'un site d'enrôlement in situ, c'est comme ça qu'on les appelle, un site dans lequel on fait l'enrôlement tout de suite. Donc, vous avez la première image à gauche. À droite, donc, on a un site qui est déployé à l'extérieur dans un quartier. Et puis, tout à fait en bas, vous avez, en plus des bureaux dans lesquels on a le dispositif qui a été déployé, on a des unités mobiles, des camions pour faire les enrôlements. Donc, ces camions-là permettent de partir dans des villages, dans des marchés. Mais vraiment, la grosse contrainte, c'est qu'il faut de la connectivité. C'est lourd, mais c'est vraiment efficace parce que sur place, on a des personnes qui ont leur carte et même ceux qui avaient fait les enrôlements avant le dispositif et qui n'avaient pas leur carte ou bien qui avaient des difficultés, ils peuvent aujourd'hui se rendre sur l'un de ces sites-là pour faire la carte. Et même ceux qui ont perdu les cartes, aujourd'hui, ils peuvent aller sur ces sites-là et puis on fait le mécanisme pour que ces personnes-là aient les cartes. Donc vraiment, aujourd'hui, c'est une innovation en Côte d'Ivoire. Et on a 40 camions, c'est lourd, hein, donc on a 40 camions et on a un camion par région qui circule, qui essaie de donner satisfaction aux populations. Donc ça, c'est un peu comment est-ce qu'on a évolué. On démarre, ce n'était pas facile, hein, on démarre, donc on a des chiffres qui ne sont pas bons au début. En 2015, on a 340 000 personnes qui sont enrôlées. C'est un objectif de démarrage qui était de 3 700 000. Voilà, on est un peu satisfait, ou du moins, on ne se plaint pas trop parce que là, on a constaté ce qui s'est passé aux États-Unis. Ce n'est peut-être pas forcément le bon exemple, mais chez nous aussi, ça a démarré très, très, très difficilement. Donc, sur un objectif de 3 700 000, on a eu 340 000 la première année, 313 000 personnes la deuxième année, et au fur et à mesure. Et puis après, il y a eu des mesures pour que les personnes puissent se faire identifier. Voilà. Et donc, vous voyez qu'en 2020, par exemple, on a eu 1 million de personnes enrôlées parce qu'il y avait la COVID, il y avait des conditions pour avoir accès au fonds COVID, il y avait des conditions pour avoir accès aux masques qui étaient distribués dans les pharmacies. Et puis après, on a vu, après, il y a eu des baisses. Et puis en 2023, vous vous rendez compte qu'on a 6 millions de personnes enrôlées. Pourquoi? Parce qu'en 2023, il y a un décret qui a été pris et qui subordonnait l'accès à certains services administratifs à l'obtention ou l'enrôlement à la CMU. Donc, il fallait être enrôlé, avoir un justificatif d'enrôlement à la CMU, par exemple pour les élèves qui doivent s'inscrire après l'âge de 16 ans à l'école. Donc, quand vous avez plus de 16 ans, pour vous inscrire à l'école en Côte d'Ivoire, vous devez être enrôlé à la couverture maladie universelle, les inscriptions dans les universités, le permis de conduire, le passeport. Donc, pour tous ces actes-là en Côte d'Ivoire, il faut être enrôlé à la couverture maladie universelle. C'est la preuve d'enrôlement qu'on demande. On ne demande pas la carte parce qu'on sait les difficultés qu'il y avait pour avoir la carte. Mais aujourd'hui, cette difficulté, elle a été résolue. Donc, on a donc mené des opérations de masse. Donc là, quand on crée la demande, après, il faut faire face à la demande. Donc, on a dû revoir notre dispositif Donc, on a de grosses opérations de masse. On est passé de 400 agents, aujourd'hui 6000 agents qui sont sur le territoire avec certains équipements ultra mobiles, en plus du dispositif que je vous ai montré pour collecter les données dans le cadre de la couverture maladie universelle. Aujourd'hui, on est à 25 millions 15 000 personnes enrôlées sur une population estimée à 32 millions de personnes. Concernant le recouvrement des cotisations, donc par catégorie socio-professionnelle, il y a des mécanismes qui sont définis. Le montant, c'est 1 000 francs. Les fonctionnaires, les salariés, il n'y a pas de problème. Mais par contre, concernant le secteur informel, donc là, les réponses ne sont pas tout de suite disponibles. Donc, on a mis en place des mécanismes qui leur permettent de cotiser à travers la téléphonie mobile. Donc, il y a des syntaxes qui sont disponibles. Et l'identifiant dont on a parlé au départ, c'est le porte-monnaie, on va dire. Donc, c'est le compte cotisant sur lequel on doit cotiser. Et quand on fait la syntaxe, on doit d'abord saisir ces numéros-là pour pouvoir cotiser. Donc, on a ces canaux qui ont été mis à la disposition du secteur informel en attendant d'avoir des réponses. Et donc, parmi ces réponses aujourd'hui, on a le conseil café-cacao, par exemple. Les producteurs de café-cacao, c'est environ 1 million de personnes. Donc, pour ceux-là, aujourd'hui, le conseil a payé des cotisations. Donc, la question, c'est mais pourquoi est-ce qu'on enrôle tout le monde alors qu'on n'a pas encore la réponse? Par exemple, quand on a eu cette réponse, il fallait que tout de suite, on puisse mettre ces cotisations-là sur des comptes. Donc, il faut vraiment qu'on identifie les personnes. Au fur et à mesure qu'on trouve des réponses, on leur donne les prestations. Donc, tout ça, c'est pour avoir accès à des prestations. Donc, voici les prestations au niveau de la couverture maladie universelle. Et voilà le lecteur qui est présenté. Quand on va à l'hôpital, c'est cet appareil qui est à l'hôpital et qui contrôle que la carte vous appartient et que vous êtes à jour des cotisations. Donc, quelques images, voilà, au niveau de l'accès aux prestations. Et puis aujourd'hui, les prestations, donc on a 33 325 établissements sanitaires où on a le dispositif de la couverture maladie universelle qui est installé. Donc, on a un agent d'accueil, on a un équipement qui permet de contrôler que la personne qui est en face, elle a la bonne carte. On a des médicaments qui ont été servis. On a des pharmacies privées qui sont dans le dispositif. On a 792 pharmacies. On a 3 millions de prestations qui ont été servies à 1 391 000 personnes. Il faut dire que vraiment ces choses-là ont évolué avec le temps parce qu'au démarrage, en 2020, par exemple, on avait 166 000 prestations qui ont été données contre 2 747 000 en 2025. Voilà, je pense qu'on est pris par le temps. On a des perspectives dont on pourra parler dans les échanges. Merci de votre écoute.
Merci beaucoup. Oui, now I'm speaking French by accident. Okay. So now we're a little bit behind. We have time for maybe 2-3 questions before we move to the next session. Can I ask for questions? Actually, for Marie and I, we can do later at the end, but for the 3 panelists, I see one hand over there in the black shirt. I saw a hand over here and then it disappeared. Someone over here? There's not? Okay. We can start here. I saw a second one here and number 3. Yes. And I'll come to you with the mic. So he has. Yes.
Bonjour à tous, merci pour la présentation. Alors, ma question s'adresse particulièrement à la représentante du Ghana. Très intéressant le modèle qui a été présenté. Mais j'aimerais demander, dans le cadre de la fourniture des services financiers, vous avez dit que les banques, on peut juste ouvrir son compte bancaire avec la Ghana Card. Comment se fait la mise à jour des informations derrière dans le cadre des exigences KYC? Merci.
Thank you so much. Can we actually take all 3 questions at once and then pass it down? So there were 2 more. We had one here and we had one here, the gentleman in the gray. If we can get mics here and there. Yes. Please.
Bonjour.
Ça
OK.
marche.
OK. J'ai une question pour la représentante de Côte d'Ivoire et une autre question pour celle de Rwanda. Pour Côte d'Ivoire, bon, je vous avais cité
Can you pick one?
Oui.
Okay, we'll hear these two, and then we'll hear from this guy, and we'll see which one you want to answer. Yes,
Just one question.
just one, please.
Okay. So so my question is to Rwanda representative. What bon, okay. What lessons can Rwanda give to other African countries in DPI? Can you share with us your experience in DPI?
Perfect. And then we had a third question here, hopefully for Côte d'Ivoire, so we have an even. Ici.
Bonjour à tous, je suis Aimé Moukoumangandou de la RDC. Ma question s'adresse à Madame Julia Clark. Si je fais un retour en arrière par rapport aux 5
Not to me. The panelists. We talk at the end.
Sorry, mais je dois quand même les dire. Merci beaucoup. Donc, quand vous avez fait la présentation sur les shifting mindset, stratégie and execution, vous avez présenté les 5 clés pour l'implémentation de la gouvernance digitale pour les États. Et au point 2, vous avez parlé de la transition du projet vers le produit. Donc, je suis resté un peu dubitatif pour dire, bon, si on fait des projets au produit, est-ce que c'est la bonne approche? Est-ce que la meilleure ne serait pas de dire, on part de projet au programme, que ça reste le plus suffisamment inclusif? Donc voilà, j'avais besoin de plus de clarifications par rapport à ça. Merci.
Merci. Could we have actually, does anyone have a question for Madame from Côte d'Ivoire? I will come to the one to me at the end. This guy. Can you go back to the gentleman? He gets 2 questions. I will answer your question in the intermission. Le même. Oui. Votre question
Oui, pour
pour.
Côte d'Ivoire, je voulais demander parmi les 25 millions, est-ce qu'il y a les étrangers ou juste les nationaux?
Great question.
Thank you. So the question on the update of the KYC. In Ghana, in the law, we've indicated that if your personal circumstances change, you have 30 days to update them. That's to ensure that we keep the database dynamic, and there's a penalty for failing to update within the 30 days. And so that's the first step. Now, the second step is that we have, across the country, we have 276 district offices, and then 16 regional offices, and then 15 premium offices. So you can walk in at any time and then update your personal records. What we are doing now is we are separating the primary records from your secondary. And when we say primary, we mean the records that appear on the face of your national ID card. So if there's anything that does not appear on your national ID card, but it's in the database, you can update that at no cost. If you're updating the one on your primary card or your national ID card, because we have to reprint the card, it comes at little cost. But what we are trying to do now is that we are introducing a system where you can be in the comfort of your home and you can do a verification, like a remote facial verification, to notify us of an update of your record. So once you notify us of the update, let's say you're changing your address, immediately you notify us through that remote process. We will now go through a process where we would confirm that you have come through a verification system, and then we now update your records accordingly. And immediately your records are updated. Anytime you visit any service center, any user agency nationwide, and you are verified, the updated records go to them in real time. So that's how we're dealing with the issue of national updates and personal information updates. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Donc, La leçon qu'on peut partager par rapport au DPI, l'implémentation au Rwanda, c'est que le système, c'est la partie la plus facile. C'est plutôt the policies, the getting everybody on the table and understanding really the journey and what is the real problem that is being solved. That's what we've seen that with DPI is very, very key. And also ensure that it is inclusive and there's no one that it is leaving behind. Because sometimes, yes, having off-the-shelf or like solutions that are already made that are not really reflecting the reality on the ground take very much time to be implemented. So what we look at is small solutions that we put into phases and we put KPIs for success at each stage, because you cannot build everything in one day. So I think that's what I can share as a lesson regarding DPI implementation in Rwanda.
Oui, comme je l'ai dit, la CMU concerne toutes les personnes qui vivent sur le territoire ivoirien. Donc, il y a des étrangers parmi ces 25 millions, plus de 1,5 million personnes hein, qui sont d'autres nationalités. Et le document a fourni, déjà la condition, c'est être résident en Côte d'Ivoire. Et le document a fourni, c'est la carte consulaire ou la carte de résident pour pouvoir se faire enrôler à la couverture maladie universelle. Et la carte, elle est la même. On n'a pas une carte pour les étrangers, une carte pour les Ivoiriens. C'est la même carte. C'est quand on rentre dans le système qu'on sait que la personne est d'une autre nationalité. Merci.
Okay, thank you so much. We are running behind, so to the gentleman's question, I'll get to it at the end. But thank you so much. A big round of applause to all three of our presenters. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences, and I hand over to Marie.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Josephine, Karija, and Teresa. I'm now going to ask my three next panelists to join me on the stage. Anthony, Hudson, and Stephen. I don't see Stephen. Ah, here. Okay, at the back. Please, we can go here. So we just had three very interesting country spotlight, and I think one of the key takeaway is that all of the three countries share the same findings. The hardest part was not about technology, it's actually enabling the ecosystem to use the systems that they put out there. So now we're gonna turn towards our three next panelists. We had a all-woman panel, and now we have an all-men panel. And so our three next panelists are actually going to talk to us through what does it take to operationalize the DPI vision and to take it into actually delivering services to people. So I have three very distinguished panelists today. We have Hudson Mesquita, Director of the Digital Identity Department at the Ministry of Public Services Management and Innovation in Brazil. You're going to talk to us about gov.br in Brazil. It's a reference point for many people in this room. I think you have 4,000 services online, 150 million users already on this platform. So you're going to tell us how you did that. Then our next speaker is Anthony Carmoy, Technical Director at France Identité under France Titre. I think France Identité had a very interesting trajectory, years of building an ecosystem based on voluntary integration of relying parties, and now the new European legislation is making it mandatory for a series of stakeholders to actually integrate. So he's going to tell us a little bit what were the dynamics, how this is changing, how to onboard those relying party. And my last speaker is Secretary Stephen Matainao from the Ministry of ICT of Papua New Guinea. You are actually currently making all this fundamental choice about how you're going to implement your DPI vision in your country. You have difficult challenges that I think a lot of people in this room will relate to. Your country, 800, I read that, 800 different languages in this country, a lot of diversity in terms of, and challenges in terms of geography, and also a lot of gaps in connectivity. So you have to design something that is inclusive for all. without further ado, I would have actually a 30-second question for all of you. If you could, in one word, actually tell us what has been the biggest enabler of your DPI for services progress and what has been the biggest blocker. I'll start with you, Hudson. 30 seconds.
Good morning, everyone. Well, it's a bit of cliche, but in Brazil, trust is definitely the biggest enabler.
Vous m'entendez? Je pense que oui, merci. Pour nous, je pense que le plus gros facilitateur, ça a vraiment été la preuve par l'usage, pouvoir démontrer dans des conditions véritablement réelles que l'application fonctionnait, que l'usage fonctionnait. Et le plus gros défi, je pense, était surtout la fragmentation dans les technologies qui étaient utilisées, dans les idées de parcours qui existaient pour tout le monde. C'était pour moi le plus gros défi.
Thank you very much. I think from Papua New Guinea's experience, I think the key word is trust, and it's consistent with the theme of this big conference here. It's not just about infrastructure, but it's about building an entire ecosystem built on trust.
Thank you so much. So we will have a series of questions now with the speakers and then followed by 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A. So you can already start to think about if you have any question for them during the Q&A session. So Hudson, coming back to you, I just mentioned gov.br. It would be interesting for us to understand how did you decide which service to onboard first? Did you had a specific framework? And now with Insight, would you do actually anything differently or sequence things differently?
So we started with a mix of simple services to test our framework, our model. It's a good way to simplify steps, simplify forms, to understand the impact of our background. And at the same time, we selected some relevant services, and it's really relevant to gain scale. So services like related to taxes, driver license, social benefits, labor information was important to create a strong adoption. And in all these cases, are services with high impact and high demand. In our case, with millions of users, and at the same time with high friction. So it was really relevant for us to identify services where people spend a lot of money, time, or needed to travel to access it. It definitely, I think these two movements at the same time was important to guarantee, to ensure engagement of other agencies and positive social pressure, because it makes sense for our citizens. So it's almost impossible in this situation decided to don't work with us.
And we mentioned in the previous session that it's about the continuous improvement to the system. And so what are the metrics that you're looking at on the website? You know, what are you analyzing to make this continuous improvement?
Well, at first, like other countries, we focused on adoption metrics, number of users, transactions, authentications. They are really important indicators, but it's not sufficient. So today our priority is to focus on the citizen's perspective. So metrics like user satisfaction. We created a model where citizens can evaluate each transaction, reducing in waiting time, reducing citizens' costs, or visiting to physical place. It's interesting to analyze if citizens is changing from physical to digital environment. And our maybe biggest challenge in Brazil is low digital literacy. So indicators about accessibility and digital inclusion is very important for us. So we define some metrics to understand if people are becoming more how can I say, if people, we have a problem with connection in some parts of the country, but especially with digital ability. So metrics to identify if people can actually use digital services is really important and relevant for us.
Thank you so much, Hudson. So, Anthony, I mentioned that you have a lot of experience with the integration with relying parties. So, my first question would be, how did you convince relying parties to integrate with your service before there is a mandate? And if you've seen any shift now that this EU legislation is kicking in and they will have to actually integrate with the system?
Merci Marie. Alors, je pense qu'il y a un constat quand même à faire globalement, c'est que ce n'est jamais l'obligation qui force l'adoption. C'est pas l'acceptation qui vaut adoption non plus. Et donc, quand bien même on a un règlement européen qui explique combien c'est important de pouvoir accepter le wallet pour les secteurs très réglementés, c'est pas assez. Et je pense qu'on peut déjà collectivement regarder c'est quoi les problèmes aujourd'hui. Alors, les problèmes aujourd'hui, quand on regarde du point de vue de l'usager, c'est qu'on a des parcours avec beaucoup de friction. Je dois prendre une photo de mon titre, je dois faire de la reconnaissance faciale et compagnie, c'est quand même beaucoup de friction. Pour le fournisseur de services derrière, l'un des gros problèmes aussi, c'est la lutte contre la fraude. Et c'est aussi un des mandats que nous, États, devons assurer pour faire en sorte que la lutte contre la fraude se fasse bien dans les bonnes conditions et éviter qu'on ait effectivement des usurpations d'identité dans tous les sens qui, en France en tout cas, causent beaucoup de dégâts. Alors aujourd'hui, maintenant, pour faciliter l'adoption, c'est à nous, je trouve, État, d'aller vers ces secteurs privés en particulier, leur montrer comment ça marche, quelles sont les conditions très claires pour que ça fonctionne. Quand on va un peu plus dans le détail, un peu pragmatique des choses, d'aller dans le détail technique, donc de leur donner un peu des jouets. Hein. Donc on a ce qu'on appelle une sorte de sandbox, une sorte de playground, hein, qui permet en fait à l'ensemble des acteurs privés de pouvoir simuler des parcours, regarder comment ces parcours ont véritablement lieu dans la réalité. Donc ça c'est très important. Et je pense qu'un exemple très parlant, en tout cas aujourd'hui en Europe et surtout en France, c'est ce qu'on souhaite faire sur la preuve d'âge. Un preuve d'âge qui est un vrai sujet, hein, donc qui n'est pas tout à fait l'identité numérique, même si on peut estimer qu'on peut dériver une preuve d'âge d'une identité numérique. Aujourd'hui, j'ai quand même le sentiment que tout le monde se regarde un peu en chien de faïence, avec le problème de l'œuf et de la poule, en disant quand est-ce que l'autre y va, quand est-ce que moi j'y vais, donc les plateformes d'un côté, l'État de l'autre. Il y a toujours ce débat de est-ce que l'identité numérique est assez acceptée. Enfin, c'est quelque chose, je pense qu'il y a bien un effort à faire, et c'est peut-être à l'État de le faire, pour aller plus facilement vers le secteur privé pour l'acceptation, l'adoption. Et voilà, c'est l'approche qu'on a en tout cas en France.
Thank you so much, Anthony. You have applause for you. My next question would be, you moving towards this ID wallet approach. This means like a lot of stakeholders to coordinate. How are you managing the user journey across all those different ministries so that they have a meaningful digital transformation in the services that they want to access?
Merci. Alors c'est vrai qu'en France, on est très fort pour créer beaucoup de comités, pour créer beaucoup de comitologie entre les différents ministères, pour avoir plein de réunions pour définir plein de choses. Je pense qu'aujourd'hui, le vrai débat, c'est de pouvoir rassembler qui est le porteur du service, qui est le porteur de l'identité. Donc nous, France Titre, nous, on porte l'identité, d'une part, on porte l'application derrière, et ensuite, c'est à nous d'aller chercher les bonnes personnes. Un exemple, je pense, assez concret, c'est qu'aujourd'hui, il est possible d'avoir le permis de conduire dématérialisé dans l'application, qu'on peut présenter aux forces de l'ordre. Et donc là, on est vraiment allé chercher directement les forces de l'ordre pour tester avec eux. Et donc on était véritablement en conditions réelles. Dans le cas, est-ce qu'il y a un camion, est-ce que c'est un véhicule, est-ce que c'est une moto, enfin, on est vraiment allé dans tous les cas possibles, les plus tordus et tout ça, tout en maintenant la sécurité de l'agent de force de sécurité intérieure. Voilà, ça c'est un premier enseignement. Je pense qu'un autre enseignement pour l'État, c'est qu'il est aujourd'hui nécessaire d'établir une doctrine, hein, parce que l'identité numérique aujourd'hui, je pense qu'on peut le voir dans l'autre partie du salon, hein, c'est quand même aussi beaucoup porté par le secteur privé. Alors quelle est la place du secteur privé par rapport au secteur public? Qu'est-ce que nous souhaitons leur déléguer? Qu'est-ce que nous souhaitons faire de leur côté? Où se trouvent les limites? Je pense que c'est assez important aujourd'hui de les définir. Voilà un peu pour moi. Merci.
Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Anthony. Stephen, as I mentioned, you're working in resource-constrained environment with a lot of inclusivity, like inclusion challenges that you have to face. You are at the, I would say, at the beginning of your DPI journey, let's say. So you're heavily investing in DPI, like a DPI infrastructure. But how do you balance those investment in core infrastructure while still already delivering value for people, like also already digitalizing services? And is there any lessons that you would have from working in this constrained environment that you would like to share with this audience? Because I think a lot of people are facing the same challenges that you are in Papua New Guinea.
Thank you, Marie. So just for context, Papua New Guinea, if you're not aware, Papua New Guinea is located in the South Pacific. We're neighbors to Australia and Indonesia and Solomon Islands. So this is almost on the other side of the world. And we have a population of around 11.87 million. And you have a mainland plus probably around close to 1,000 islands as well. So you can imagine the context geographically. And in terms of our DPI, just to give a current update of where we are, we actually we came into contractual arrangement with Tech5 in October last year. We launched our wallet in December, and our what we're calling a foundational identity credential on top of our national ID. And we launched that in December, on December 24th, and by February we integrated our first bank, and we have about 31 relying partners that we are currently in mature stages of discussion with, from the telcos to the banks and the super funds domestically, and a couple of lower, private providers that we are targeting to have fully integrated by July. So that's the current status where we are. We're targeting high transactional services where we think, and some of the comments, resonates with us, that we need to look at what the citizens are prioritizing. Now, in a relatively challenging environment where you talk about connectivity and resource constraints, you got to be very tactical about how you do it. Some of the, let me just give a few examples. I've heard some of the conversations had in some of the other panels about budget. There's a lot of budget uncertainty, in countries, and when you're talking about rolling out a digital ID and having this long-term plan, sometimes there's uncertainty. You don't have, a long-term planning. You have challenges with lobbying with your political heads to get that budget and that focus. And so we've taken on board the approach of PPP with our technology providers. And this allows us to mitigate challenges we have with budget constraints, political will, and a wide range of other in terms of, and I've heard some of the other experiences with other countries that by the time they've completed the procurement, 1.5 years later or 1 year later, the technology is sort of changed as well. So it allows you to go to market very quickly and scale very quickly. And I think our example is, I'd like to think that our example from December to we're now in May, and in fact, we're introducing legislation to require every SIM card holder to have a digital ID. And that's coming into enforcement probably in a week or 2 weeks' time. That scale that we're looking at now, it comes from that ability to work around those challenges of resource constraints.
Thank you so much. And very shortly, is there something that you think you had underestimated when you started your journey? Something that, now that it could be interesting to share with the audience, something that you would have underestimated?
I think you can use legislation to enforce DPI, but I personally think that I've underestimated the value of a digital public ecosystem, because once you start talking to relying partners, I'm a government official. And often you come with regulation and law that may be the wrong approach. And I often underestimate that we can talk and find value in the entire ecosystem. See, a digital public ecosystem is an ecosystem truly where there's value for every party. And that's how you can build trust. You need to talk to every party and say, hey, if it's the banking sector or the telco sector, you need to talk and talk about value, how each party has value in the digital public ecosystem. And I think that's something I've underestimated, and maybe I think other governments can consider that. Talk to everyone, and you start to build trust before you build a trust infrastructure. Yes.
Thank you so much. So now we have time for questions from the audience. So if you have a question, raise your hand, and we will have somebody coming with a mic for you. No question at all? Yes, Amy has a question. We have a shy audience today.
Merci beaucoup encore une fois. C'est pas une question, c'est juste une clarification. Je m'adresse à Anthony. Vous avez parlé de l'initiative de la France sur la preuve d'âge que la France a mis en place pour notamment accélérer la question d'identité numérique. Est-ce que vous pouvez aller un peu plus en profondeur pour que effectivement qu'on comprenne les nuances et comment faire les liens avec les systèmes d'identité traditionnels? Merci.
Merci. Merci pour cette question. Je pense que c'est important effectivement pour nous de clarifier. Alors, aujourd'hui, la preuve d'âge en Europe, c'est un peu compliqué dans le schéma légal. C'est-à-dire qu'en France, on a voté une loi qui est encore en cours d'examen, qui va bientôt devoir passer aussi devant les différentes assemblées, pour interdire les réseaux sociaux aux moins de 15 ans. La loi ne dit que ça. Mais l'interdire, ce n'est pas encore une obligation sur les plateformes de vérifier l'âge. Vous voyez ? Et en fait, là, c'est plutôt une compétence de la Commission qui, à travers le DSA, Digital Service Act, va pouvoir effectivement, à l'article 28, dire la plateforme va devoir vérifier l'âge de cette manière. Alors aujourd'hui, la Commission a beaucoup travaillé pour mettre en place une sorte de référentiel technique sur la base un peu des wallets et compagnie pour faire des partages de preuves d'âge, donc des vérifications d'âge. C'est pas de l'estimation de l'âge, c'est aussi un peu une nuance qui est un peu plus importante là, parce que l'estimation de l'âge, c'est je prends un selfie, on a un algo, on ne sait pas trop où est-ce qu'il est, où est-ce qu'il tourne, on ne sait pas trop où est-ce que les données vont, mais qui donne une sorte de fourchette d'estimation de l'âge. Bref, aujourd'hui, la Commission est un peu plus claire en disant que c'est vraiment de la vérification d'âge qui est importante. Et l'intérêt aujourd'hui pour nous, et c'est quelque chose qui, je trouve, est assez positif, mais aussi dur à expliquer à l'usager, c'est que on a l'État qui propose une solution de partager juste une preuve de majorité, donc on ne partage rien d'autre, on ne partage ni son prénom, ni son nom de famille, et encore moins sa photographie, mais c'est quand même l'État qui le porte. Et ça, aux yeux des usagers, souvent c'est quelque chose un peu trompeur, ça fait un peu peur, d'autant que, alors évidemment, tout cela se fait avec les bonnes discussions, avec la CNIL, avec les autorités sur la confidentialité des données. Donc voilà un peu plus de détails sur la partie preuve d'âge. J'espère que c'était assez pour vous.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Okay, my question is directed to Stephen, and it's regarding the aspect of the PPP. So, as you know, from the PPP side, you have the private player in this case may be coming there with the understanding of this is a partnership where revenue is supposed to be generated. But then how do you ensure that there's sustainability in the event that the company, the partner in this case, the private player, decides to pull out because you were using them as an engine to ensure that this technology or this platform is available to the citizens?
All right. No, I'm gonna need it to be repeated because I could only hear the French.
Can you repeat actually your question?
The translation.
Yes, the translation.
Okay, can I go now? Yeah. Okay. So my question is regarding the PPP model. We good?
Oh, we only. It needs English, not French, actually.
Okay. All right. Thanks. I'm asking regarding the PPP model that Papua New Guinea has adopted for DPI or for digitization in this case. So my question was to do with sustainability, because with the model you've picked there, we are saying the private player is helping you with ensuring there's continuous innovation, and as well as the initial investments, which the government may not have at the time. So what happens in the event that the partner, in this case, a private player, decides to pull out? Maybe the business is not good, or for whatever reason, they pull out. How do you ensure sustainability? Because at this point, as a government, you'd have become so reliant on the partner to make this infrastructure work. And maybe just to add on that, remember, when we talk about digital public infrastructure, we also have the aspect of there are services which are not even revenue generating, which government gives more of a social responsibility. And yet the private player, I want to believe, in as much as it's a partnership, they are looking at the revenue model for this to be sustainable. So how do you balance that? How did you do it for Papua New Guinea in terms of ensuring this balance stays and the thing doesn't fall apart afterwards?
Thank you very much. That's a really good question. For PPP, in a digital public ecosystem, as I mentioned, every player must know that they have value in the ecosystem, and with value comes, I would say, also the cost, and that has to be imparted to every player in the ecosystem. And once everyone knows that they have value and there's also a cost for that value, I think the ecosystem can build and can be sustainable. Now, for Papua New Guinea, we're looking at setting up a special purpose vehicle to run digital ID as a service, EKYC, and a wide range of other services. Of course, we would like to partner with our tech partner. We have to have fail-safe measures, and that has to be looked at separately, and then we negotiate a good deal with our tech partners. I think that, and there was discussions in earlier days in other sessions about what is this cost. We have to also know that this is a utility cost. It's not profit making. EKYC is just to enable someone to access further services, and it should not be seen as profit making. With that being said, there's still a cost to it. And so for us, we're working out what that cost is. We're socializing it with all our stakeholders. For our SPV, we think that relying partners of higher transactions should have some share in equity in that SPV. So we're doing a modeling around that SPV as well. And we believe that that will address sustainability, because if relying partners hold shares to the SPV, they obviously value it from a commercial perspective, and they will use that service, and it becomes self-reliant. So we're just trying to work a model around that. State holds a very minority share to that SPV, but only that share for policy informing purposes. And so that's a work in progress. And going back to your original question on the fail-safe measures, I think the right deal has to be made with your tech partner.
Thank you. Next question.
So my question is for Hudson. You briefly mentioned about connectivity issues, and the underserved population is in a remote place, right? And I'm assuming, and pardon my ignorance about your platform, if it is a e-government services platform, it's online. So have you addressed the issue of how do you serve this underserved remote population? Because Brazil, we know, is like a big, land mass. So how do you address it, or have you deprioritized it, or it's like lower in the priority that's saying, let me first serve Rio de Janeiro and then let's go to the jungles later?
Oh, thank you. It's a great question. Well, first, in Brazil, there is a law defining that digital services is an alternative. It's not an obligation. So every institution needs to offer a physical service as alternative for digital service. It's a law. It's not the reality. Many institutions change for the digital environment and close physical space to support the citizens. And in that moment, our priority is invert this perspective of public agents, because we are improving our connectivity, especially in the Amazon area, because it's a huge area, and but at the same time, there are part of our population that don't wanna interact in digital service with government or private sector too, because prefer a physical contact, a personal contact. The As I asked before, the low digital literacy is a challenge for us. So we are making some partnership with different level of government to use physical structures as a place for specific for to support for digital services, to help to use your digital ID, how to download an app, how to. In Brazil, we organize our platform in levels. We named it as bronze, silver, and gold to simplify for citizens, but it's the same model of the story IDAS model. But sometimes people need some support to change over these levels. In these physical places is a good opportunity to create a more digital to learn people to use digital service. And that's the point. Our challenge today is that maybe I think 96% of public service in Brazil is digital today, but it's not the same reality for our population. So this physical space with states, municipalities is really important to create this first contact with digital service, especially for vulnerable population, older adults, and people with low digital literacy.
Thank you so much. I don't see any hand left, and I will take this opportunity for us to finish on time. So I will have actually a last question to conclude for you. Each one of you, if you could give shortly one piece of advice for the people in this room that are starting their DPI journey, what would it be?
Well, never separate digital transformation from digital inclusion. I think the real success of the DPI project is not when the most connected people use it, but when the most vulnerable citizens can also benefit from it.
Anthony?
De regarder aussi ce qui se passe dans les autres pays. Et un dernier conseil, c'est de venir voir ma présentation cet après-midi. Merci.
I would have to say that don't think digital public infrastructure, you think digital public ecosystem. When you build a road, you're thinking about what's at the beginning of the road and what's at the end. You're trying to transport a citizen from one side to another, and you're trying to create value in that journey. So digital public infrastructure is the road. You have to think about getting your citizen from one end to the other and what's in the beginning and what's at the end. So building an entire ecosystem around the road.
Thank you so much. I'd like to thank our 6 panelists today. We started the session with a poll for you where a lot of you said digital could fix the bad user experience of accessing services, but I think hearing from you, we really got the message that the hardest part is not the technology, it's really creating the trust, onboarding the relying party to the ecosystem and doing this while keeping the inclusion in mind. So thank you to all of you, also Josephine, Karija, and Teresa. And I'm going to jump on what Anthony just said. If you want to hear more about Stephen experience and Anthony experience, there is a session this afternoon on their ID wallet project. So please join us. And thank you so much. You still have some handouts at the end toward the door, the exit door, so don't hesitate to take them. And you can also download them from the slide deck. So thank you so much. Yeah, have a nice rest of the day. Thank you.